Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow is ongoing. This morning, Donald Trump's special envoy to Russia arrived by plane in Moscow. Kirill Dmitriev met him there at the airport, according to Russian propaganda outlets, RIA Novosti and TASS, which report that it was Dmitriev who met Witkoff at Vnukovo Airport, where the plane of the American president's special envoy landed. Later, after the meeting at the airport, the motorcade with the American guest drove directly to Moscow, closer to the Kremlin. In the morning, a demonstrative walk by Witkoff and Kirill Dmitriev in Zaryadye Park in Moscow had already taken place. We have just seen this footage. It is obvious that certain Russian propaganda media were allowed to shoot the footage. This video was published by RBC, RIA Novosti, TASS and others simultaneously. We can see Dmitriev and Witkoff walking through the park, accompanied by security guards, actively communicating and discussing something. The White House expects a lot from this visit. Yesterday in particular, White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly commented on the topic of Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow, and she said that a lot depends on what Steve Witkoff comes back with from Moscow. If he returns empty-handed with no result at all, President Trump will be furious. This is a quote, in fact, from official White House spokespeople. President Trump has made it clear that if Putin does not agree to end the war, there will be very painful sanctions. This is the statement that came from the White House. We will see how painful these sanctions will be, because Donald Trump was uncertain even in his statements that the sanctions would work 100%. He was constantly making such reservations on purpose, saying that Russia had learned how to circumvent sanctions, that there were very cunning people working in the Kremlin who knew how to circumvent sanctions. That is why Trump seems to be unsure how painful these sanctions will be for Putin and the Kremlin. He made such statements. It all depends on the US president. The more sanctions he is willing to impose, the more pain and sadness he will ultimately cause the Russians. The American president has all the tools in his hands for this. We will also be watching the course of this visit of Steve Witkoff to Moscow, because today obviously there will be various statements, details, messages and announcements. We will actively cover all this. In the meantime, it is important to inform you that armed defense cooperation between Ukraine and the United States, with the participation of our European partners, continues. And it continues to be quite fruitful. In particular, Reuters and other international media report that the United States has approved the sale to Ukraine of services for the repair and maintenance of important artillery, M777 howitzers, and transportation of equipment worth more than $200 million. The main contractor for the repair of the howitzer will be BAE Systems. In fact, the State Department approved 2 separate arms contracts for Ukraine, 2 agreements. $104 million for spare parts, maintenance of the howitzers mentioned, and almost $100 million on transportation services to support logistics. In total, this is the 5th and 6th contract with Ukraine since May of this year, for a total amount that already exceeds $1 billion. This is exactly the $1 billion that U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce had been talking about a few hours earlier at a press conference. She said that Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and the Netherlands would finance the supply of various American weapons to Ukraine for more than $1 billion. This is so that we don't have all kinds of speculation on this topic, because President Zelensky, after talking to President Trump yesterday, talked about $500 million, but in total it has already reached, let's say, $1 billion. And we plan to continue this cooperation further. Tammy Bruce said that Denmark, Norway, and Sweden are announcing a decision to finance an additional $500 million package of U.S. weapons for Ukraine. That is, we are talking about a variety of weapons. This includes ammunition, including missiles for Patriot systems, air defense, and serious defense assistance packages, which also include maintenance, repair, logistics, and so on. That is the American supply, the Europeans pay, and Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, is also very actively involved in these negotiations and contacts with Donald Trump on this topic, which is why President Zelensky thanked him separately yesterday in his address to Ukrainians and the general public. So we can see that constructive cooperation with the Americans continues, despite the fact that it seemed as if Donald Trump would stop any armed assistance to Ukraine. Funds are being found, and this program continues to operate.